Looks a lot fucking smoother online.
It's a shit show.
Yeah, it's
a shit show.
It's very heavily edited.
You might be a victim of deceptive conduct.
Yeah, just a bit.
All right. Welcome to the Brisbane Safety Differently Book Club, everyone! Yeah! Huge crowd for a great person tonight. So, you know, our welcome guest, Greg. Who here is new to the club this night?
Welcome.
Thank you very much, and please make them welcome. Thank you so much. This is a safe environment. It's an inclusive environment. We really hope you enjoy yourself. Please make sure that you're networking, you're talking to others. Don't be scared. All right, we all love alcohol and we'll be talking lots. Okay, so all good. So these events aren't possible without a sponsor. We need someone to sponsor the room, and then that sponsorship goes toward pizzas. So I'd really like to thank Mark Alston and the entire team at Safe Investigations Differently.
Well done, Austin.
Thanks very much for sponsoring this night, Mark. So, like all safety places, we have a short induction video that we'd like you to all watch. So please give us your utmost attention.
There's a big world out there, and it's filled with people that just don't see eye to eye. See, that's why I come here. I ain't too fly to wear a robe. This is where common sense presides. In my house. Court is now in session.
Judge Steve Harvey! People versus Greg Smith. Will you all be seated?
Not fucking altar! Oh, sorry. I made a mistake. I was supposed to tap this.
It's all good.
That's a face of regret. That's a face of regret.
That's a statement of claim prepared.
Honestly, you have got no idea.
I thought catching up with you again was going to be the part about tonight. And this fucking prick walks
Do you know how hard it is
in.
to
You
get?
look like a reject from the Hamilton cast.
Respect to my courts, Mr. Smith. I'll have you thrown out. Or I'll have you locked in a room with Tony McConaughey.
Safety hasn't got an image problem.
Yes, I will take it off now, thank you. But I will say, do you know how hard it is to get a fucking judge's wig? This is a barrister's wig, because I couldn't find a judge's wig.
It's not.
You can't buy them in sex shops, mate.
That's what I had to get it. Alright, I'm taking it off now. I'm going to be covered in plastic like Phoebe said. She's like, why are you covered in plastic?
Time to get serious.
Because he wants his money back. Who said that? Content! Right, okay, let's have enough. Can you guys hear me with this? Because it doesn't sound like it's working. Because normally when I get one of these, I'm either standing up front of a much smaller crowd than this, or singing in a pub or something like that. But like everybody, I knew when we said Greg was coming, this was going to be pretty big. So we're absolutely right, mate. What an honour it is to have you here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
But mate, I think this sort of first question I really have for you was, you probably know this already, but I'm pretty sure these guys don't. It's the 50th year of the Rubik's Cube. And I wonder if you can tell us your connection between the Rubik's Cube and what you think of safety.
I can. I'm happy to share that. That's one of the happy stories of my life. And first of all, I am really nervous tonight because this is a fucking intimate crowd. All right.
Not as intimate as this guy. I'm a bit worried I'm here.
Yeah, that's just fucking odd, right? But having raised that concern, I will not be surprised if we're off looking for things in bottles that are orange and blue later tonight. I suspect that'll happen. Fuck's sake. What was the question? Oh, Rubik's Cube. No, I'm nervous. Look, I'm nervous. I'm not good one-on-one. I'm not good in small crowds. I'm very good in big audiences where there's a lot of distance, and this is intimate, intensely intimate. So if I get a bit rushed or a bit nervous, if I start to talk too fast, if someone can just slow me down, I'd really appreciate that. Because I would like to be under. I'd like to be under. If anybody, but Tony could slow me down. I'd appreciate that because I'd like to be understood. Rubik's Cube. I use Rubik's Cube to explain the difference between wicked problems and complex problems. And the reason I do that, and some of you were at the National Safety Summit, my 14-year-old daughter in 2023 was the national champion for solving the 5x5 Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Right? And if you're wondering if you're going to do that all night, that might end up in an uncomfortable position. Because we don't actually do that in Australia. It's not a thing.
I'll have you know I've never been arrested, so I don't know that stuff.
Give it time. Yeah. Thank you, sir. So the issue. So a 5x5. So most of you are probably familiar with a 3x3. So 4x4 and 5x5. Just a quick story. So she was the 2023 Australian national champion in the 5x5 blindfolded, and she was really disappointed with winning the national championship because her two main competitors didn't finish the cube. And you can't explain that to a 14-year-old. You can't explain that not many people do the 5x5 blindfolded because it's really, really, really hard, right? So what happens is they bring the cube out, they put it in front of you with a cover on it. You take the cover off. Hey, Jody. How you going? You take the cover off. I told you I'm not good with crowds. You take the cover off and you memorise the cube, and then you put a blindfold on and you solve it. That's the way you do it. And she did it in 13 minutes and some seconds in 2023. Came first. The people she admired didn't finish it. Right, and these are previous national champions, and one of them a previous world champion. And so she thought she did a Steve Bradbury, so it wasn't really a win. This year she came third with a time of 11.06, which was a personal best for her, and she was more impressed with herself for coming third and first. But she also came second in 2x2, which she's never podiumed in before. She solves all of those cubes blindfolded faster than I solve them with my eyes open. But Rubik's Cubes are a known quantity. You can solve them, there are solutions, and you know when you've solved the cube. You know when you've fixed the problem. You cannot do that with safety. Right? There's not an end point. You don't know if it's fixed. It's different day to day, minute to minute. And the only thing we have in our arsenal, which we unfortunately don't have enough discretionary time to give attention to, the only thing we have in our arsenal is constant vigilance and curiosity. And the way we have structured the health and safety industry over the last, well, certainly my 33 years sort of sniffing around the edges of it, is bureaucratic mechanistic activities of collecting data and creating process. And we need more discretionary time, and we need more confidence. We actually need more confidence as an industry to say we are professional advisors. This is my advice. You don't have to take it, but this is what I'm giving you, and not being scared to do that. But we need more discretionary time to be out and providing the constant vigilance for the organisations that are lucky enough to have safety people, because most organisations don't even have them. So I don't know how we address that problem. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, totally. I know we're here to talk about proving safety, Greg, but I really wanted to touch on paper safe. Yep. Like when you were writing that, did you have an idea that it would become such a phenomenon that it has?
No. I had written 2 books before that.
And I think my mum owns both copies. But to be fair, so no, that's not quite right. My very best mate, who unfortunately has passed, has bought a copy. And I remember we used to play poker. We had a poker night. He took me around the back of his place, and he said, "You come and have a quick chat, Greg." He said, "Listen, I can't say this in front of the boys, all right?" I said, "No, it's all right. I thought your book was really good, all right? Just if you tell anybody that I said that, I'll fucking deny it." So I wrote a book called Management Obligations for Safety and Health, and then I wrote a book of Contractor Safety Management, so I'm planning to rewrite. I've got 3 rewrites, and that's one of them. And then I did a book which might be a bit controversial. I did a book with Rob Long called Risky Conversations, and Rob is a divisive figure in safety. I appreciate that. I think he has a lot of value to the health and safety community, but I understand where the divisiveness comes from. That's fine. And the first 2 books I wrote were published by a reputable company, and they reputably charged $80 a fucking book and gave me like 2%. And it wasn't the 2% that annoyed me. It was, well, the point of me writing, there are 2 purposes for writing books for me. One is to consolidate my ideas, because I have lots of stuff bouncing around up here. So for me, a book writing process is 2 years of filling in a notebook and then 1 month of going blah on a page. So it takes me a month to write a book and 2 years to consolidate the ideas. And that's what happened with both of these. And the second thing is for people to access those ideas. And you're writing a safety book, all right? You are never going to make money out of it, because right. So I say you sell, I don't know, what's the name? Do you sell Harry Potter stuff?
Like J.K. Rowling?
Yeah, like billions, right? Right, because lots of people bought a book, right? This is kind of the sum total of the people who bought my book. And yet for safety, it's a big seller. Right, so you're not going to sell a lot of books, so you're not going to make money out of it. And what do you want to do? You want to consolidate your own ideas so you can speak coherently about them, and you want other people to perhaps look at them, it's not a come to Jesus evangelical moment, it's okay, well, this might give me a way to have a conversation with other people to progress where I want to go. So, did I think that Paper Safe would be what it was? No, I had absolutely no idea. And if you look at what was going on at the same time, completely unknown to me, Dave Proven was doing and Drew were doing the safety clutter stuff, which is not dissimilar to the Paper Safe stuff. And so I think there was a confluence of ideas at around the same time that said, we've got a lot of people doing a lot of stuff, and it's not adding much value.
Yeah, I definitely, mate. I think people, if anybody's not, I'm pretty sure everyone would have read Paper Safe, but if you haven't, you need to grab a hold of it, because it's really, really, really important. Mate, you just talked about characters of ill repute. Now I'm looking at a full front row of them. And you spoke about contractors as well. Like, do you think we'll ever solve that? This is going to be a rhetorical question, but what can we do to best help contractors and
leave them the fuck alone? You engage them to do work, let them do the work. Does anybody, I didn't ever think I'd get the chance to ask this question. Does anybody know what the word lacune means? No, I didn't either. There's a case called McConnell Dowell and Brady Marine, which is a New South Wales District Court decision. There's a critical case when it comes to talking about contractor safety management, and it talks about the lacunae. And lacunae, and apologies to my learned brethren, but why the fuck you can't just say the gaps, which is what lacunae means. But they said, so they said in the case they had a contractual requirement that the contractor would provide all the safety management systems to the principal, and the principal would review and approve them. And the safety management systems had lacunae in them. Again, they had gaps in them, and those gaps ought to have been identified. And so I think we take on obligations for our contractors that we don't have to take on legally. And it's an interesting question. So I work with a major mining organisation in WA, and there's a few of them over there. And one of them says, Greg, we understand all of the legal risks, but we will always impose all of our obligations on our contractors because of who we are and our public reputation. I don't have a problem with that, and that's fine. But if that's what you are going to do, don't say, spend 3 months producing all this crap and giving it to us so we can take it, ignore it, and tell you what to do anyway. Just be honest with them and say, come in and do this. We know who you are. We've worked with you before. Come and do it. Or engage them for their expertise and then just leave them alone to do their job.
Yeah, mate, you said something. We were at that workshop with you yesterday. Excuse me, and you said something that it's quite funny. I remember looking at Carolyn and going, "Ooh." Whenever we ask for documents, the expectation would be that we've read all of them.
Yeah. We don't. We haven't read most of them.
Yeah.
Who was I talking? I was talking to someone tonight. You can go into your own system, you can look at your own electronic databases, you can see who's downloaded and read your documents, and normally it's just fucking cobwebs, no one's read it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, they haven't, have they? No. Is this all the stuff you have to bleep out? Yeah. Sorry, sorry, mate.
Love it.
Just, yeah. No, we don't. We produce stuff, we produce stuff, we write it poorly, and we never test understanding and implementation. And I get it. Even people think, it must be easy for you, Greg. You have an organisation, say, I'll get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of this. No, it's extraordinarily uncomfortable to talk to an organisation and say, this is what you should take out. It is uncomfortable for organisations. It's uncomfortable for the advisors to organisations. Everybody is sitting there thinking, what if?
Yeah.
What if we take this out today and tomorrow something goes wrong? Then everyone's going to turn around and say, oh, Smithy told us to take it out.
Yeah.
You know, that's fine.
Yeah,
You know,
totally. Mate, what has been the...
Just close the mic. Please.
Okay.
Leading the witness.
I'm coughing and splitting here. Greg, I actually wanted to ask you this yesterday, mate, but I would love to know, what's the worst piece of documentation or like a system document that someone's presented to you that you just thought, what the hell is this? What, everything?
That's just a daily occurrence. I have had procedure documents that are unintelligible at any level.
Written by Michael Cornell, I'm assuming.
I have literally taken documents home. So my daughter's a lawyer. My eldest daughter's a lawyer now. She used to be a associate to a Supreme Court judge. My middle daughter's a playwright. She is and they're both high achieving literature graduates. My wife's a grade 2 school teacher, and I've taken these documents home and I've said, can you tell me what this means? And they said, fucking no. And so there is some really fundamentally unintelligible stuff out there. But the bane of my existence, and we talked about this yesterday, the bane of my existence is typically the frontline, what I refer to as the frontline risk assessment tools we give to our workers, so JHAs and safe work method statements. And in the vast majority, so success rates in occupational safety and health prosecutions, or work health and safety prosecutions, run somewhere between 94 and 96%. Well, if you're prosecuted, you're going to lose. And what lose means in the vast majority of those cases, because most people don't contest them, is they plead guilty. And in my experience, most of the guilty pleas are driven by JHAs and safe work method statements. because the content of those documents cannot be defended by the people who have signed on to them. So I've got a JHA, it makes no sense. I talk to you as a supervisor and I say, can you explain how you got from a H1 red and this Harry Potter magic bullshit and you got to a D3 green and what it means, and they can't explain it. So I can't, it's very difficult to encourage a client to plead not guilty in those circumstances when you know that workers and supervisors are going to be in the witness box under cross-examination and not be able to explain the fundamental risk management document for the organisation. So, now, that has been wrongly interpreted as a view by me that we should get rid of them. I think that there's a strong case to get rid of them in a lot of circumstances, but the argument is not to get rid of them, it is to say if that is your primary risk tool, make it your primary risk tool, get rid of all the other shit, give people time to do it properly and invest the time, effort and resources necessary to understand if it's being done properly. And I'm a very strong believer in the let's do less, let's do it better, and let's give our discretionary time back to frontline supervisors and safety people to actually be out there understanding if what we say we do works.
Yeah. See, I'm huffing and puffing. I'm like, because I totally agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Mate,
We have to be careful not to agree too much. We need to find the friction as well.
Yeah, we could.
Because it's not, no one has all the answers and not everything's right, and not everything is right for every circumstance.
Well, here's a question then. So you said that you're safety agnostic. Like,
I as a lawyer, I am.
right.
As a human being, I'm not.
Well, I'm keen to explore.
And there's a difference between lawyers and human beings, in case you just.
I know. I was a judge for 2 minutes. I felt amazing. So I'm keen to. You're agnostic as a lawyer, but not as a human. I'd love to know what kind of tools that you think are really helpful, and maybe that people should be using.
So the struggle I think we have, and we don't have an answer for at the moment, is individual conversations matter in safety. Right? Understanding my personal circumstances, understanding my scenario, me understanding your expectations, whoever you are who are talking to me. So individual conversations are obviously important. We can never downplay those. We should never stick a number against them and say you have to do so many of them. All right, that's a whole different conversation. That's proving safety is around that. So we need to understand what's going on at the front line, but then we need to work out how do we analyse and aggregate those conversations. So if we've got 100 conversations going on a month, how do we bring those together and say this is what we've learned from those conversations and this is what it's telling us? Whereas at the moment what we do is say we've had 100 conversations a month. We stick a green light next to that. Yeah. So and that's hard. I think that's hard to do, and I'm not pretending to have answers, and I think that is really hard to do. And then there's a next step to say how do we take that information, and this is for larger organisations, okay, recognising that. How do we take that information and push it up into the organisation at an executive level to say this is what we've learned. This is what we've learned, this is what we know, and in response to what we know, this is what we're going to do, or this is how comfortable you should be or how uncomfortable you should be. It is all a conversation. And I just feel, and safety is not the only, victim's not the right word, sorry I don't have the right word. We have lost confidence in expertise. And that's happening all over society at the moment. We've lost confidence in expertise. And I think the health and safety industry has lost confidence in itself to some degree. I think we're starting to get it back. I think the move to evidence-based safety is helpful, but we've lost confidence in ourselves to to be able to say, you have engaged me to give you insights into the safety risks of this organisation. These are my insights. This is what I believe. Now, you are free to act on those insights as you choose. Now, in part, I think it's because safety is a very young profession, and so the legal profession is a very old profession. We're very comfortable at having our advice ignored, right? And it's not a problem. It's like, well, this is my advice. This is what you have to do. And we've got a lot of experience at distilling, like literally centuries of precedent into coherent advice. And I'm not sure the safety industry is very good yet at distilling lots of data into coherent advice. We were talking about that before. We've got lots of data points in organisations. Most of what we need to know to properly inform the organisations that we work for already exists. We don't have the technical skills yet to distill that in a coherent way and to be confident in our advice. That comes with literally centuries of precedent and development, and I think that's something we need to work on. The written skills of the health and safety industry are, with all due respect, poor. I think we do as an industry, I think we do good incident investigations. We do really shit reports.
What about the fact that lawyers cause half of our problems in safety?
Well, I do. I think
Objection!
No.
Leading the witness.
I think, and I don't think lawyers are solely to blame. I think consultants have a role to play. I think insurance companies have a role to play. I think there's a lot of things that feed into the difficulties that we have. I think we have had two great opportunities lost. The 2008 development of the work health and safety legislation was a tremendous opportunity lost. We didn't think about what do we need from legislation to do good safety outcomes. Okay, and that has been compounded since 2008, particularly with the development towards industrial manslaughter. So none of the reports that have led to the implementation of industrial manslaughter have provided any sound research base that says that's a good idea. And with all due respect to the health and safety industry, we've kind of piled on enthusiastically and said industrial manslaughter is a good idea. Partially, I suspect, because you all think it's good for business, right? So I might be a little bit cold there. So I think that's problematic. Lawyers who work in health and safety predominantly operate in the sphere of legal professional privilege, trying to shut down conversations. But to be fair to the lawyers who do that, and I'm one of them, we shut down those conversations because the people everybody in this room reports to are scared of being prosecuted. And we do not have a legal framework that creates the freedom for organisations to share lessons. We have a fundamentally retributive system at the moment which is discouraging of learning. So there's a whole lot of structural issues that sit around safety, and I've completely forgotten your question because I'm just
That's all right.
off on a bit of a rant. We have some structural issues, and what I think is structurally problematic is that Australia probably leads the world in health and safety research. I think when you look across where all some really interesting research is happening, and yet that research base has no input whatsoever into the regulation of health and safety in this country. So nobody is standing up and saying, if we want to achieve good safety outcomes, we need a system of regulation that encourages learning or diminishes blame, or how do we even create the opportunities to surface the weak signals in our organisation? What does that look like? we've created a model of due diligence that is almost universally biased against small businesses. And we do not see chief executive officers of mining companies or oil and gas companies. You know, we talk about that. Not only do they not realistically face the threat of prosecution, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but they don't face the threat of prosecution. They don't even get interviewed by the regulators. So we've created a model of retributive justice that has created expectations that will never be delivered against. And yet the health and safety industry has stood by and kind of championed where we are. Nobody from the health and the safety industry, and we've got this, you know, none of academia went and stood up before or gave submissions to the Boland Review, for example, which was one of the earliest approaches, and said, this will not achieve the outcomes you want it to achieve, or, and I would accept this either way, said, if you do it this way, it will achieve the outcomes you want to achieve. It was the fact that mothers of young children being killed on construction work sites predominantly stood on the steps of Parliament House and said, we want the lives of our children to matter. And I get that. Emotionally, and a lot of empathy, a lot of sympathy, I get all of that. I'm not trying to be a complete wanker, but is that the best way to design legislation to stop people from being hurt? I don't think it is. And nobody who could inform that debate actually said anything. I find that somewhat extraordinary. I've killed the mood, haven't I?
No, you've not. You've not, mate.
Thanks for the question, Jody. You just...
Yeah, well, Jodie sort of kicked it off, really. There is a bunch of attractive people in this room, and Andrew Bishop. So I'm kind of thinking we should go to you guys for some questions if you want. Try and win this book that the book club has kindly donated. So, any questions? Oh, here we go. Give me a fan.
Yeah, so Mark Olsen from
Objection! Take your eye elsewhere.
So, firstly, I really enjoyed the book Proving Safety. I like especially about the Baker Review where you discussed Deepwater Horizon and how BP were chasing numbers on injury stats and that gave them false assurance about process safety. I thought that was really cool. I was going to ask you about that, but then Jody got my mind thinking about something else, which was, do you think we have the wrong system for how the judicial system that we use in Australia about WHS law? Would it be better if we used a coronial system, similar to like maybe the French or whatever, rather than the adversarial system which we currently have in Australia?
I've written about this before, I've spoken about it before. I think if we could move all of work health and safety to an inquiry-based model with a tripwire somewhere at the end where if we are confronted with a truly recalcitrant employer, then that trips over into the criminal justice system. Because we should be primarily about learning and sharing lessons and preventing things happening. So yeah, I do think if we could shut down the whole model and turn it into a inquiry-based model, and there's a whole lot of things around that. So the problem with a coronial model is it takes years. So what you want to do is you want to establish a specialist safety inquiry model that says within 3 months, maybe longer for some complex incidents, but basically workplace fatality, 3 months later, public report, CEO has to attend, they must be examined in the witness box about what they knew about safety, public report comes out, lessons learned, nothing that gets done in that inquiry can be used in any legal proceedings against any of the parties, but if it is a recalcitrant employer, who obviously has done nothing about safety and refuses to cooperate, then that can go into the criminal justice system. I just think there's something to that.
Have you ever experienced that, Craig?
No.
Sorry,
no,
mate.
no. This is me and whiskey and imagination.
I'm just kind of wondering, have you ever had an employer that went, or have you experienced it? This person really didn't give a shit. No. Yeah, I didn't think you would.
They're always devastated.
Yeah,
they're always.
Yeah.
And look, it's hard to say. Everyone is sorry after the event. Okay, so there's a bit of that. But I've never come across a situation where an employer has created something that they personally and subjectively felt was unsafe and didn't care. Plenty of situations where uninformed employers have created things that are objectively unsafe and didn't know. But I think that's a bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
On you go, big man.
So, how do you get around, like, I guess kind of when we do investigations in our company, you're obviously kind of trying to find a system failure or kind of where something went wrong and stuff like that. And you've identified that. But then when it kind of goes to a legal structure, that system failure then kind of gets highlighted on the legal side. So how do you combat that? Like, I mean, we've kind of gone down the path sometimes of going, we've learnt this, but don't document that.
You don't.
Then it will
No, you don't.
highlight that.
Yeah.
And basically hang your company.
I think, and this is part of the problem the structurally that we have. I think 99% of good safety practice and good legal risk management align, okay? Except in the one area of investigations. And if you're going to have an open, honest investigation, you are going to create legal risk for the organisation. All right? So I've got a matter that I'm living with right now where a worker has given a statement that hasn't been done under legal professional privilege, and it has exposed them to enormous legal risk and potential jail time. All right? So that is the one area where it simply does not work. That is a trade-off for the organisation between managing legal risk and improving safety. I do not have an answer for you.
And if you're looking for good investigation training, may I recommend Mark Alston at Investigations Differently, sponsor of tonight's event. Nick?
So Greg, when you deal with the outcomes of our fuck-ups, right?
Objection.
Leading.
Repeat the question.
Yeah.
So when you deal with the outcomes,
Mistakes.
of
Errors.
yeah. So when you're at the end point where you deal with fatalities, right?
Yeah.
And we're not talking about our fuck-ups. We're saying you're saying the really pointy end of the outcome of those events, right? In your industry. What about the 99.9% of stuff that goes right in organisations? And this is probably this is more of a leading question around, we do all of this work in the name of safety to make sure things go right, and we do a lot of stuff. We talk about things that go right, and we're trying to highlight that within organisations. We're only dealing with 0.1% of stuff that doesn't go right. So I suppose, how do you know from your end, looking at what you see, that what's working and what's not working?
It's an interesting issue. So I think when most organisations say things go right, it means they don't have an accident, right? And that's a very different conversation from saying our systems are working. So very often you're not having accidents notwithstanding the fact that your systems aren't working. And that's the critical piece that gets pulled apart if you end up in legal proceedings. So they're two very different conversations about things are working and our systems are working. They're two extraordinarily different things. So I can drive from, so, you know, say I drive to work and I speed 10 kilometres over the speed limit the whole way, you know? And I get to work. Things are working. I've gotten to work, I haven't had an accident. I can do that 364 days a year. But I am not working in accordance with the rules. And this is a problem. We talk about rules in a very hypercritical way, and I understand that. But if something goes wrong, all the and this is, there's a problem here, because I appreciate there's a problem here. All the regulators will do is look at your rules and hold you accountable against what you have said, all right? And the difficulty is we write our rules in a very prescriptive way that does not give our frontline workforce much flexibility to manoeuvre around it. And you can, I can't remember who wrote about this philosophy of irreducible uncertainty. You cannot reduce your procedures and processes down to a point where there's no possible exposure there. But I think I do think there is a basis for having more confidence in our workers and creating processes with more flexibility and less prescription. It might be better for them, it might be better for us, but that's not backed by research. That's a little bit of a guess.
I think there was a couple more questions out there. Oh, Nikki, what have you got, Nikki?
I'm curious, considering we all chose to be in workplace health and safety, presumably for a very similar reason, that we're very committed to the ethical aspect of workplace health and safety. I'm conscious that you're on the sharp end of legal, which is working within a judicial system that is retributive by nature.
Yep.
I'm very curious about why you would choose that as a career, because it's an interesting choice.
Didn't choose it, fell into it. Didn't choose law, fell into that. And it kind of explains a lot of what I do. So in Western Australia, if any of you are familiar with that jurisdiction, for decades and decades, has been the softest fining, softest prosecuting jurisdiction by orders of magnitude. All right? The only way you could make money out of health and safety as a lawyer was to do training and write books. And even then you made fuck all. Oh. Which is disappointing. I should have gone into mergers and acquisitions, and then I wouldn't have to hang out with you lot. But
I feel the same, baby.
Yeah, no, leave me alone.
Sustained.
I started my legal career back in the early 90s, and yeah, I'm old, all right, fuck off. And then I started as a corporate commercial lawyer, and I hated it. So back when I was at university, employment law and work health and safety law were not units you could study. They did not exist, right? So I ended up doing employment law because my first boss had a really big entertainment budget on his credit card, and we spent a lot of time at lunch and on the piss.
Do you work for Mitchell's?
I know, right? Yeah, I know. So, but when I went to a law firm, you had to do a rotation. So I did a summer clerkship as an employment lawyer, and I wasn't allowed to go back into that. So I had to do 18 months of rotations, 6 month rotations, and I hated it because I was in this commercial thing. So I you know, as a 20-odd-year-old young male, I took the rational decision of, fuck this, I don't like it, I'm going to join the army. Go figure. So I went and joined the army and did that for a while. And I ended up being involved in several fatality inquiries in the military. And then I ran into my old boss at a restaurant called Christie's on the wharf in Darwin. And he said, come back. And work health and safety still wasn't a thing then, but gradually I got introduced to more fatality. So I didn't choose it. It sort of evolved with me. Yeah.
Before I jump back into you guys, sorry, I wanted to ask you about your career though. Like you had you dabbled in a bit of safety, didn't you? Like an actual safety.
No, I got an operational safety role because I was dumb as a bucket full of hammers and naive, and I thought, I've got all the answers to safety. I'm going to go and work in an oil and gas company. And I went in there and I went, oh, for fuck's sake, are you kidding me? This is what they actually do.
That is not the views of my employer. Just like saying.
And then I left. So yeah, two things happened. You're going to edit
we can edit this stuff.
Several bad puns later.
And you, a couple more questions. And you go, mate.
Greg, from a contractor perspective, if you want to have a conversation with your client and tell them to bugger off and let you go and do your job,
you can't.
how would you do that legally?
You can't. I've been having this conversation for 2 conversations I've been having for 25 years, and it hasn't made a single difference. I'm the white Oprah. I'm the least influential person.
Everybody gets a car.
Nobody. You can't. You cannot do it. You cannot jump on the phone tomorrow and ring up Rio Tinto and say, listen, I spoke to this bloke called Smithy, and he said you should just fuck off with all your requirements and let us do what we want. Right? It is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We are an indoctrinated. There's something that is so deeply inground in the health and safety industry that does, and in some ways it's a bit embarrassing that people find the stuff that I do interesting, because it's all care, no responsibility. Because I can say do this with complete confidence that almost nobody will do anything about anything. Right? The fact that injury rate data still has a place in health and safety reporting in most major organisations in this country should be professionally embarrassing. All right? Well, okay, so somebody said it is, and yet we cannot move the dial on that stuff. Doesn't matter where it comes from, that's the problem. Yeah. Yeah. I get
actually.
That's where it's coming from.
This is a fascinating conversation. Can we take 5 minutes? I need a wee.
One eternity later.
Told you I was nervous.
Good to have you.
And action!
It's good. And welcome back to Greg Smith and this 2-part special that we're running. This is a 2-part special that we've got here with Greg. Right, one more question from the audience.
Jody.
Let Jody.
Pick on Jody.
Yeah.
Here we go.
No.
Dragon Slayer.
I've actually got a bit of a plea, a request. So one of the things that you see a lot in Australia with people who write books in safety is they become superstars, and a lot of the stuff they say maybe isn't evidence-based either, but it becomes law, right? So I am hoping that with the responsibility of this book, and I bought 3 copies myself, and I give these copies to my clients. I buy your books regularly and give them as gifts.
I think she's after some free copies.
No, I actually, what I'm hearing is something that I think you might be really interested in, and that is people are taking this concept of metrics and they're saying we don't need to collect data anymore. And you talk about safety as a wicked problem, and wicked problems are exactly complex systems. And with complex systems, we've got to be super sensitive to emerging stuff coming out of it, and so we need data, but we've got to use it in the right way. And I really, really want to hear you say, and I want to hear you say it every single time, I put you in front of clients and stuff like that, is that don't confuse collecting information and data with metrics.
So I'll go back to paper safe. Don't confuse my criticism of paperwork with saying get rid of it. Okay? In the same way, don't confuse my criticism of metrics. Metrics are not data. They're 2 different things, and I think data enables you to answer questions. Okay, and I'll put a pure lawyer's hat on. Everyone in this room can decide what safety means for their own organisations. Okay. Legal risk management is based on the principle of reasonably practicable. Reasonably practicable has 2 underpinning arms. This is what all the case law tells us. Do we have proper systems to manage the hazards in our business? And do we know if those systems are implemented and effective? Data informs those two questions. Okay? Now, the number of take fives that an organisation does is not data that informs those two questions. So the trick is, not the trick, the challenge is to say, how do we uncover the data that informs those two questions? And I suspect that for most organisations, that data already exists. We are just not using it to answer those questions. So yes, Jody, absolutely, I will say to you, again, you're right, it will probably be misinterpreted in the same way that PaperSafe has been misinterpreted. I am not saying do not collect data. What I'm saying is that most of the metrics that we use in organisations do not inform the fundamental question that goes to reasonably practicable or due diligence.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That was amazing.
I get far more articulate with an empty bladder.
Yeah. So, mate, we've had a few questions from the audience. I'm just wondering, what was your favourite question there, and who would you like to give that book to? Probably not Jodie, since she's buying about 20 copies of them.
Nice. No, I'm not making that call.
All right, I think it's who's not got, Kieran, have you got a copy of this?
I actually do.
Who's not got a copy of this book?
Michael doesn't. Michael had a good question.
I'll buy you a copy. Here you go. You want? Yeah, you have that.
Yeah. Thank you. That's on behalf of the book club.
Right, okay, we're going to wind this circus. Oh, circus? Sorry, it's not a circus.
Make sure he signs it.
I'm very proud of this. Greg, here's the thing. So, Tony McConaughey's on the dance floor, giving it the moonwalk. He's drinking mango shots.
Shotters.
What's the song that would get you on the dance floor?
No, with you.
Tony.
I love your Barry White voice.
There is not enough cognac in the world. I have a very eclectic.
Oh, don't worry, mate. Everybody does.
But right now, it would probably be "Stay With Me" by the Faces if you're sort of 1970s inclined.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. All right. What's your favourite karaoke song? If you would sing karaoke.
I don't sing.
Well, if you were to go up for the first time ever, and you probably might tonight, what would you sing?
The only way's up.
I'm thinking something simple and toneless, ABBA.
Oh, like Tony?
Yeah. I'm not a karaoke.
An ABBA song. We've had a few ABBA songs.
Yeah. Oh, Underneath the Radar.
Oh, nice.
That's not. I like that song. I'm tone deaf and can't sing. But
Can I just say something? After the back of yesterday would be money, money, money.
All right.
On that note.
On that note, Greg Smith, I hereby sentence you to a life of